Well, my theory about Bilderberg is that their vision back in the early 1950s, post the Second World War, was in their minds quite idealistic. They thought that a safer way of running the world, having just lived through Mussolini and Hitler, a safer way would be to de-ideologue the politicians and to put power in the hands of business. Because businessmen only care about the flow of money. They don't care about politics and ideologies. But of course, what the last 50 years has taught us is that CEOs can be just as corrupt as politicians, and frequently are. So, that's my view on Bilderberg, is that it was an idealistic vision, which, like all idealistic visions, went wrong.
Well, have you read where it's been declassified now that Hitler was on MI5 payroll and so was Mussolini?
I don't know anything about that. I can't comment on that because I know nothing about it. I'd be interested in reading the link.
Yeah, that's London Guardian, which you write for, Times of London. We already knew this from Milner Group declassified documents. And, no. Well, you know about Edward VIII being a Nazi, right?
Well, yeah, there's no question that a whole load of the, ruling gentry of Britain and during the rise of the Nazi Party, loved the Nazis. And they were constantly inviting the Nazis over, the British ruling classes, and, putting them up for tea. And, there's a wonderful novel about that called The Remains of the Day. So, there's no question that was going on. The Mitfords, I can't remember which Mitford was it?
Well, what happened is the British said, you go ahead and attack, we're going to back you. And then they flip-flopped at the end. And that's why the deputy Fuhrer flew over Rudolf Hess and got captured. The issue is, John, it's all been declassified now, and it was all staged. Hitler was set up. So this corporate group of bankers that set up Bilderberg, Prince Bernhard, the Nazi, and all the rest of them, this is all a big, giant joke. You know about Prince Philip and all his calls for eugenics. You've certainly heard those statements. Have you read the White House Science Czar's own publication, Eco Science, calling for putting poison in the water to sterilize us? Have you seen this, John?
I know nothing about that. And also, I firmly believe that, we know that some of the founders of the Bilderberg Group, did have Nazi ties. I think it was
Prince Bernhard.
Was it Joseph Rettinger as well, or just
yes?
But my personal view, and this is the kind of non-conspiratorial view, is that that's not an important fact. And the important fact was that these were people who were kind of idealistic globalists.
But hold on, Bilderberg has released 1954 documents from their founding, after all these years saying they didn't exist, where they said we're going to create a European Union, we're going to create a global government. This whole time they've been lying about it. And then now, at the final moment, they spring it on the public.
Well, that's interesting. That would be interesting to read, definitely. That doesn't surprise me, the idea that, that a single currency and a European Union was kind of high on Bilderberg's agenda back in the 50s. That doesn't surprise me at all.
All right, well, instead of Alex Jones barking questions at Jon Ronson at jonronson.com, let's start getting into The Men Who Stare at Goats. That was the sequel to them, I guess. International bestseller, back in paperback all over the world right now. The movie is out, doing very well. What was the research you did on the book, A, and how accurate to the book is the film?
Right, okay. Well, as I said, I think the book really began, even though I didn't realize it, that night when you and I were together in Bohemian Grove, because it did really, you and I couldn't have interpreted, the ritual differently that we saw at Bohemian Grove. We had a completely different view. But the one thing we agreed on was that the participants, these men of wealth and power, seemed to be really into it. And I thought to myself, my God, this is not how I would spend my summer vacation, having a mock human sacrifice in the forests of Northern California. It seemed like a very weird thing. And so I thought, well, what other weirdness, what other irrationality can be found in the corridors of power? So the first thing I did was with my producer, John Sargent, was kind of look into remote viewing. There was something kind of tangible that was out there a little bit. And post 9/11, I met Uri Geller, Uri Geller with the spoon bending and so on, and he'd always claimed to have been a secret psychic spy working for the CIA. And kind of nobody believed him because they sort of figured that the CIA wouldn't do that. So post 9/11, they thought that the CIA was sensible. You know, we may be nuts, but the CIA is surely sensible. So post 9/11, I met Uri Geller, and he said to me, he was very mysterious, and finally he took off his dark glasses and he said to me, if you repeat what I'm about to tell you, I will deny it. And I said, okay. And he said, I have been reactivated. And I said, by who? He said, I'm not going to tell you. Then he said, okay, I will tell you just one thing. The man who reactivated me is called Ron. So I went off on a journey to try and find Ron. And I never found Ron, although I've got a suspicion as to who he probably was. But on the way to finding Ron, I met... Tell me how long I can go on, because this is a story that I can go on for hours.
No, I want to hear it. Jon Ronson, when we come back, I mean, obviously, you are the reporter in the big movie out in theaters right now. Obi-Wan Kenobi plays you.
I know. How about that? As you can probably, as the people watching the Skype can probably tell, it's very appropriate, because when I look mistily out, there is a Ewan McGregor-ness to me.
You look just like him. We'll be right back.
What's so crazy about not starving? To cover yourself.
Jon Ronson joining us from London. Coming out of the next break, I'm going to play the trailer for The Men Who Stare at Goats. So you were getting into the story, which is shown in the movie, of where you're meeting with the former Black Ops commander, and he's saying, so you were a psychic soldier? And he says, yes, Jedi warriors. Please continue, Jon Ronson.
Yeah, well, basically, what we discovered through our research, that the remote viewers, which I'm sure loads of your listeners know about, the team of psychic spies, were really just a tip of an iceberg. And the iceberg was mainly this thing called remote influencing. And I first got to hear about this when I was in Hawaii, interviewing a man called Glenn Wheaton, who said he was part of a secret unit called Project Jedi. And I said, what's Project Jedi? And he said, well, it's a series of levels. He said, level 1, teaching the soldier to eat only nuts and grains for a month. And I said, okay, what was level 2? He said, level 2 was invisibility. And I said, well, that's quite the leap from level 1. And I said, well, actual invisibility? And he said, well, yes. But after a while, we adapted it to just trying to find a way of not being seen. And I said, like camouflage? And he went, no. And I said, what was level 3? And he said, level 3 was intuition. You come to a fork in the road, you go left, you go right, you go right. And I said, what was level 4? And he said, level 4 was stopping the heart of a goat just by wanting the goat's heart to stop. So really, it was this one interview with Glenn Wheaton that opened up this whole secret world of military intelligence craziness, where they really did have rooms full of goats, and they brought in these martial arts guys to try and kill the goats just by staring at them. And, you know, they say that from time to time a goat fell over, but, you know, I think probably because it was suffering from some sort of pre-existing medical complaint, or maybe it was just kind of bored of being stared at for, you know, days on end by martial arts gurus from Ohio. And then what the book Men Who Stare at Goats goes on to do is really look at how some of these ideas didn't really die out, but mutated and came alive again in the form of different types of interrogation techniques at Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib and so on. The movie's lighter and doesn't go into these darker areas. It's more comic.
Well, John, I want to continue from there. We're talking to Jon Ronson, JonRonson.com. He's the author of Men Who Stare at Goats and Them. But expanding on that, John, you talk about tip of the iceberg. Yeah. I've been studying globalist, and if you went deeper down the rabbit hole, you would find that the reason those old men were getting so upset or focused on the mock human sacrifice that you thought was silly was because they understand it was all symbolized and was symbols of something much, much deeper, and that all of this system is just simply the surface of something. Look at Skull and Bones, that video ABC News got with them screaming and yelling and worshiping Satan and, you know, practice mock murders of young girls. Look at
the Ron Rosenbaum video, right? That was shot like a cross.
Yes.
You know, right, yeah.
But I mean, that's my point, John, is that they take it serious because the real ritual was not the image of the boy being burned. It was whatever happened behind those black curtains across the water. That's when the old men really got upset and really started growling and breathing heavily next to me. And it wasn't one or two or three or four. The whole group around me were doing this. Mike Hansen, who snuck in with me, witnessed it. And so, I mean, I'm telling you, these people are out of their minds. They're crazy. And so you or I, normal people, look at this and it looks ridiculous. This is not ridiculous to them.
Well, again, this is where I kind of agree and disagree with you, because where I disagree with you, because I'm not, conspiratorial minded, is that I believe that what we saw at Bohemian Grove was all that was going on that night. I don't believe there was anything going on behind the curtains. However, where I do agree with you is that the people who go to Skull and Bones and go to Bohemian Grove do seem to be into this idea of ritual and symbolism. I agree with you there. And so you have to ask yourselves, well, why? And one person, actually, who was involved with Skull and Bones said to me that